Well, welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering truth together. My name's Clint.
Hey, I'm Tony. Welcome back to the show.
And you may have caught some earlier episodes where we were kind of engaging with current pop culture, TV shows, movies. Well, the latest thing that we've both gotten into is the show Alone.
Good show.
It's available now on Netflix and
Hulu.
We're
watching on Hulu.
I also found it on the Roku channel. If you have a Roku TV, that's how I'm watching it.
I have a Roku TV. There's a Roku channel,
and it's free. Yeah, get out of town, huh?
Wow. Yeah, all right.
I have seasons 1 through 4 on there.
Got it. Okay.
And then 6 is on
Netflix.
the Flicks, and 5 is on the Hulu.
Everything's on Hulu.
Everything's on Hulu. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to give them the premise
Alone.
of the show?
So here's how Alone works.
And just to be clear, we're gonna talk about some interesting philosophical ideas to pull from the show.
We're not just talking about the show.
It's not just a review or a
Right. We want to talk about what has it got us thinking about philosophically. But here's how the show works. So it's a game show. It's not scripted. It's a contest. They're playing for $500,000. 10 people dropped into the wilderness alone, separated from each other, and they're not supposed to find each other, or they don't. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to survive out there on their own for as long as they can. And they bring 10 items with them of their choosing.
From a list of 40.
Oh, from a list of 40. There you go.
Or 30 or something.
There are regularly scheduled med checks where the production team's coming in to make sure that they're healthy enough or whatever. And if they're not
healthy enough. So there is a bit of human contact.
Yes. Every now and then, a little bit of human contact.
With the med team.
But they're having to film it all themselves. There's no camera crew with them. So they're setting up tripods and stuff. They are alone for the bulk of this. And they just got to survive. So day one, they got to get a fire going and cut down some trees and build a shelter. And there's wild animals and that's
the elements.
Yeah,
of course.
It's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. And it's really given me a strong appreciation for just how much our ancestors went through in sort of subduing the earth, you know?
Yeah.
I take for granted, I was sitting there with Melissa, we're watching these people build these shelters or whatever, and it just occurred to me oh, this is my shelter. You know, I'm in a shelter right now.
You're in a shelter.
And it's
You're surviving.
It's a sick shelter. It's really good compared to theirs. Super good. But the elements really are just outside, and I would be having a miserable night if I didn't have this shelter, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there in a snowstorm like they have to do.
Right.
So it just gave me an appreciation for how much our ancestors suffered, and it got me thinking about man, why is the world set up in such a way that it is such a battle just to survive?
Now, let me there's some disanalogies with this and our ancestors' life. So at least with the seasons I've been watching, season 6 and season 1, no one lives there.
There's no natives.
Right.
Yeah.
And probably for a reason.
Yeah, it's probably not that inhabitable.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Over the eons of all, these continents being explored, Nobody has yet tried to do it here, probably for a reason, because it's super hard.
Yeah.
So, here in Ohio, I don't know if you would. I think they could go for a long time on the Alone show. Oh, and the crux of the show that's really good is it's a last man standing thing. Yeah. So it's not just drop you out there for a month and see how you do.
Yeah.
It's you win if you're the last person remaining, because you can tap out if you get freaked or you get hurt or you lose too much nutrition or you lose too much weight, fall below a certain BMI. But
you don't know when anybody else is tapped out.
I think that makes the show.
Yeah.
If you don't have that,
you have no idea how many players are still in the game.
So everyone's worried, you don't want to be the first one out.
Yeah.
And so even people that are in the final 3, they have no idea. And they're like, oh, I don't want to be the first one to go. And you're like, dude, you're so close.
You're so close to winning. Yeah.
So that let's just linger there. That's the first kind of philosophical idea that's interesting.
Yep.
Is how knowledge or a piece of information can change your willpower or mood. So that's pretty weird. It doesn't seem like it should, but just to know that I'm in the final 2 rather than still the first 10, it's 10 contestants.
Yep.
Doesn't that do something for you?
It does. And
does it make a difference, and why?
I think it does make a difference. And I think it might have something to do with, I think maybe it's doing the same thing that pain, when it's contextualized, may not necessarily result in suffering. So, for example, if I'm working out with weights, lifting weights, and there's a burn in my arms because I'm lifting heavy, but I know I'm inducing this deliberately because of the gain that I'm going to see or whatever it is. That is just a totally different experience than if I wake up one morning and my arms are burning like that. You know, I've got a serious medical problem in that context and I need to go see a doctor. So my degree of sort of psychological suffering is really ramped up when I think there's a huge problem.
That's really fascinating.
And it could be the exact same sensation, the exact same feeling. All that's changed is the context and my experience.
And it probably is
so
like
different.
that with the show. Like, I will feel just as hungry.
Yeah.
Or like the stimulus of the hunger pang that you experienced that day would be the same, but with the knowledge that it's the final two. Like, there's
it just reframes it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can more easily overcome it.
I can hang on one more day.
Right.
I think even C.S. Lewis wrote something about that. That just pain, even the most unbearable pain, or what you might call unbearable, shows itself to be in the moment actually bearable. Like as long as you're experiencing it, you are bearing it. You know.
Wow.
So you always feel like I could not go even one more moment, but you are doing this one. And you will do the next one, and you will do the next one, and
that's interesting.
Very
stoic to remove yourself that far from it. The embodied immediacy of a pain.
Yeah, I don't think I would do well on the show, dude. Well, first of all, I lack all the survival skills, so that's certainly I wouldn't do well. I think I would do okay from the solitude standpoint.
Really?
Until I think this is what would get me. As much as I make fun of the guys who they do this, but like. Middle of the night, it must be so dark and you're hearing all kinds of noises and you're in some crappy little lean-to you've made with a tarp. Like, I think I would freak myself out about predators or something. And I can't do this. You know, I think I'd tap
for sure. I'd be totally gone. I
couldn't sleep. How are they sleeping?
I would conjure up all the demons of hell in my visual field from just horror movies I'd seen, and I would be tormented day and night. I would have to get out.
Yeah.
I don't know how they don't.
Yeah. Oh my word. So, but it did get me thinking about
the solitude is another interesting piece of the show.
Yeah.
So now in season 5, you had mentioned, I haven't seen that one yet, but they have a companion.
Yeah, so season 5's a little different. It's teams of 2, and they land apart from each other, and then one of them has to hike to the other while this one sets up camp. And it could take days, a week, you know.
Oh, okay. But regardless of how many people actually make that journey, once they're together, see, I don't know if you want to spill the beans and spoil it for me, but I'm thinking that makes all the difference. Like if you can if you can have another person to share it with, that takes away the big deal. Because when you say like, oh, I have so much more appreciation for what our ancestors went through. Yeah, but
it was tribes.
They were tribes,
communities. Yeah,
and like you had help. Like someone was doing like the hunting and the gathering
division
and the
of labor, right?
And just like we are a social animal. Yeah. So I have all the respect for the guys that like, just like I'm so homesick and lonely. Like I'm being psychologically assaulted.
Yeah.
I'm deteriorating. Like I need to be around people. That makes sense. Like you're a social animal.
Yeah.
So once you inject a companion into the mix, you got to think that changes it. But
you would think. I think
you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I think it presents new problems though. Once you've got another person in the mix, because from a practical standpoint. Now you've got to catch twice as many fish, or you've got to get twice as much food.
And what's the rule on this? Do you both have to tap, or if just one person?
If one person taps, team's out.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. So there's that. And then there's the issue of one of the partners is feeling good about it and the other one's missing his family, and he wants to tap, but this one feels guilty about making him stay. So they got to tap. Or once you introduce another person and you're both tired and hungry and run down and things that you're trying are failing, you could have a short fuse. So you've got this relationship then that you need to maintain. You can't just be getting into fights and biting each other's heads off.
Right.
Because you got to last out there. So it presents unique challenges.
Maybe it's harder with just one. Yeah.
I don't know. So Genesis has this line that it's not good for man to be alone. That's something God says.
Yes.
It's not good for man to be alone. I will make him a companion suitable for him. And then Eve and all of that.
Yeah.
And I don't...
There's something to that, right?
There's something to that, but then why is it the case that so often sort of the remedy that spiritual gurus will offer you to your troubles is to go and get alone, get quiet, go seek some solitude, do a retreat, unplug from society, turn your screens off. Isn't there value to be found in solitude as well?
What's amazing too is that that's been advice for a long time.
Yes.
It's not just since Instagram.
Yeah, right.
Which is, we desperately need that advice now, for sure. But isn't that shocking that they had monasteries in like the 1400s?
Right.
Like, if you lived in the cabin down the road, weren't you basically doing the same
thing? Kind of alone anyway?
Yeah. Why did you have to lead this monastic monk life when, for all the world to me, they both look like monk lives?
Yeah.
You're just out subsistence farming on your plot.
So there is, I think there's something to be said for. Okay, I'm going to make a claim. You tell me if it's outlandish.
I'll try.
The capacity to be alone and to be at ease with oneself is a sign of health.
Yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah?
Well, when I run the counter experiment where you are alone and you can't handle it at all, that seems like something's wrong.
So,
but there's a length of time.
Okay.
That's why I said earlier, like I have all the respect for someone that like is just.
You don't think they're just weak mentally? And that like if they really mastered their mind, they could just stay out there indefinitely? Why should it matter if they're near somebody or not?
I didn't say I respected the tap if they quit.
Oh.
I'm just saying like
you said you have all the respect in the world.
That feeling of like I really want to be with my family. Like I'm having a really hard time with this. This isn't right. But I'm not saying you should then tap necessarily.
Now, but isn't there something to...
Now, one guy made this argument, and now, I mean, it's less about just general philosophy and just specifically the show.
This guy.
But, like, one of these guys made the claim, I think it had been 3 weeks, but he's saying, like, I don't actually need the money that bad, like, of winning. I didn't really come here to find myself. Like, I did it for the money. But he's just kind of thinking about, like, well, I don't need that money, but I'm missing time with my kids.
Yeah.
I'll never get that time back.
Their life is ticking by. Birthdays are happening and I'm not there.
Birthdays or Christmas or Thanksgiving, depending on how long they're there. And, like, I'm missing these moments. I'm just out here grinding away in the wilderness.
Yeah. Now, you said there a second ago, I didn't come out here to find myself. And there are some people on the show who they kind of are going out there with, what do they mean when they say that? Because I think that's part of the spiritual quest or whatever that I was talking about a moment ago. Go get alone, find yourself, find God, whatever that means. What's happening there? What are they talking about?
Yeah, good question.
And is that something each of us should pursue at some point?
Well, I think most of the gurus across the ages, religious spectrum would probably agree that you don't have to go to the wilderness to find that. You can find yourself right now. Here, I could, in the midst of this recording, just be present to the moment and find myself. Now, that probably takes a lot of training and practice, and maybe a good, like, throwing into the deep end is to go on one of these kind of, like, solitary retreats or something.
Yeah. Like it breaks you in a certain way.
Because it is artificially, like you're choosing to remove the trappings and the distractions that would normally make such a project difficult.
Yes.
Like just here in like my actual Clinton's life here in Medina, I have a full-time job. I have lots of kids and a wife and a house I'm trying to maintain. There's a lot to distract me from, I don't know, soul work and care and introspection.
Yes.
I would have to be pretty intentional to carve out time to do that. It's possible to do in my regular living, and I do occasionally, not as much as I should.
Yeah.
But if you were to throw me into a cabin up in Canada for a week by myself, and maybe if I didn't have to do all that crap of finding beetles to eat and mice, trapping mice, I mean, I would really look forward to that. I'd find that to be relaxing, but it would be an opportunity to find myself there afresh.
Well, I think, just pulling on that thread a bit more, I think part of what you're describing are the various roles that you're playing here in this mode of living. You're a husband, you're a father, you're an employee, you're a citizen.
But who is Clint?
Right. And there's a way in which the various relationships that we have sort of, they can act as mirrors for us. Like, I know who I am in terms of, because of the things Clint says to me and about me and the way he reacts to me when I do different things, as I'm sort of defining my edges by pinging the people around me and seeing what bounces back. I don't know if that's making any sense, but when you take away all those social reflections so that you're not, and it's just you and the environment, what's left? Or when you strip away those roles,
you're much more alone with your thoughts.
Yeah.
So you might be thinking, when you're watching the show, I think you can get in the mode of this, but when we say, like, when you said a moment ago, if someone can't handle being by themselves, that's not necessarily specific enough, because I'm by myself every day for at least a little bit, but I'm watching TV, I'm reading a book, I'm listening to... I'm still kind of distracted. Yeah. This show, I mean, they're showing you, these guys are sitting in that tent, so like up in the Arctic in season 6. It's like a 16-hour night.
Yeah, well, and it's freezing. You're not going to go outside.
Yeah, so you're just laying in your sleeping bag for 16 hours. You're not super tired. You're just laying there, just alone with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Now that, like, is that a sign of unhealth that you couldn't make it through that?
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Like, I think boredom is just an interesting thing to think about. That, like, what is that? We have this drive to do or to achieve or to engage with the world in a meaningful way. It might be the same thing as our drive for meaning, or they're related in some way, but for me to just sit, like, I will be overcome with boredom. What is that?
Yeah, what's that?
Why is it painful?
Is it Michael Stevens, who's the Vsauce character?
Yeah.
What's his show that he does?
Minefield.
I think it's episode 1.
Yeah, Isolation.
Is the free one. The other ones are, like, paid behind YouTube Red or something.
Yeah.
But the first episode is free to watch, and that is... he just wants to do, he does these experiments on himself about like the human condition. And so he goes into solitary confinement for 3 days.
Yeah.
Just wants to know, what's that like?
Just a white room.
Not in like a prison, but
padded
it's
cell thing.
It's like, I don't know what it is. They specially designed it for the episode, but it looks almost like a glorified larger phone booth.
Yeah.
With enough
a room like this size.
Yeah.
Probably.
A bed to lay down. What else is in there?
The toilet. He's got some food supplies.
Food supplies.
Bright light. So it's just a bright
you can't
white
turn off
light.
the lights, can you?
There's no sense of time because there's no clock.
No clock, and everything's white.
Yeah. It's always the same. Yeah. For 72 hours he goes in.
And he goes into it thinking, like, this will be a piece of cake.
Yep.
And the first day,
he
like starts to break down.
He loses it. It's like 24 hours in, and he's like, I think it's been about 48 hours now. Oh, buddy.
You lose your sense of time.
Yeah. Because once you go to sleep, you wake up, everything looks exactly like it did. You got no clue how long you passed out for.
So that is only 3 days.
Yeah.
And he was like clamoring to get out.
Yeah. Why? Yeah, that's so interesting.
And so obviously, I just brought that up because you mentioned boredom. Now the guys on this show are in their tents for a while. They're obviously experiencing boredom, but it's a little different because I can still... I mean, Michael didn't have anything in that room to occupy himself.
Yeah.
Right? No reading.
I mean, he had a mattress I think he did some push-ups with or something at some point.
Oh, my word, dude.
You know?
At least out in the woods, like, I can whittle. I can do my little chores. I can maybe try to fashion playing cards or something out of...
You have to stay alive. You got to get firewood. Got to do that every day. Get some water.
But it's that psychological battle.
Now, I've heard guys like a Sam Harris, not to bring him up again, but great guy.
Yeah.
He said on a recent podcast, I heard him say that he knows 100% that he could be perfectly content to sit alone with his thoughts and just meditate and he would be perfectly happy.
Wow.
His happiness is not dependent on external circumstances at all. It's something that's within himself when he pays close enough attention and meditates. So, like, I do wonder if that's part of the benefit. Like, does the master meditator overcome boredom? Is that a skill that is an antidote to boredom?
Or what if that's like the ultimate survival skill?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I want to see
more than a friction fire.
I want to see, instead of one of these redneck guys I want to see a Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
do alone. Yeah, this is my life. So.
Yeah. Are there any other threads from that show? Anything else that came to mind for you?
Yeah, man. So one thing that, I mean, comes up right away in these early episodes is like how the treatment of animals.
Oh yeah.
And just the relationship that human beings have with nature.
I'm thinking of the betrayer guy. Do you want to tell that story?
Oh, just with the chipmunk or the squirrel?
The squirrel, yeah.
Well, yeah, there's one of the contestants. It's a pretty barren landscape, and the only living thing he saw running along the ground was a squirrel.
Yeah.
So for the first few days, it's like, oh, hey, squirrel. And the squirrel's kind of like following him around a little bit, like still keeping distance or whatever up in the tree. And then I think like a week in, he's like, but I'm hungry. And so he just like shoots it with his bow and eats it. And then afterwards he's
so broken.
Shattered. Yeah. Just broken heart. He's crying. I betrayed the trust of the squirrel.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, like some of these, I mean, even to get on that show, you probably have to like display that you have a certain amount of
I'm sure there's audition
natural
takes
or like acumen for survival. And a lot of I've heard other hunters and stuff on various podcasts talk about their respect for animals and life and not wanting the animals to suffer. But you have some of these folks on the show, like they're petting the rabbit.
They're so grateful for this rabbit they caught.
Yeah.
They're like crying tears of gratitude. I've never been that hungry. I have never suffered hunger like that.
Right.
To where I've cried tears of gratitude that I get to eat.
And for us, you and I are like just our lifestyle. We're pretty far removed from the processing of our food.
Yeah.
And
it's so abstracted.
I haven't seen it done with my eyeballs. I've seen documentaries of factory farming and all the rest of it, but I haven't seen a cow butchered or a chicken processed with my
I know
very
what
eyes.
A steak looks like.
Right.
But
but just to see these contestants, like, and this is how you cut the skin off a mouse.
Make sure you get these guts out and squeeze the intestines out and whatever. Yeah. Well,
and it can appear brutal and sad, I guess, that here was this was a rabbit.
The life was in it just a second ago. I saw it.
It was running around and living its rabbit life, and then it ran into some little snare that you made, and it wrung its neck.
Yeah.
And now you're eating it.
Now they are, I will say, pretty good about mercifully killing these folks. Like not folks, the animals.
Yeah.
Like a fish, they'll sever the spinal cord right away. That's the fastest way to do it. He won't feel pain, whatever. And there's an argument to be made there for, so in one of these episodes, not to spoil, but I'm going to, this woman's really hungry. She sees on the beach a duck that is like lame, like it's got its legs broken or something. It's kind of crying out on the beach and it can't move, it can't fly. And so she just walks up and like stomps on its neck and kills it.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, like watching that happen physically upset me. Like my stomach turned. I just felt, that is so, I hate that. I hate seeing that duck killed that way. But it also occurred to me, well, if she hadn't done that, like wolves would have come down to the beach and torn the duck apart in a much more painful way than how it ended up going. Or it would have slowly stayed there and starved to death over however many days. So it's a merciful way to kill, but man, it still upsets me to look at.
At some point we'll do an episode on like veganism, vegetarianism, and ethics about food, but I don't want to go down that whole, that's a whole... It's like an extended conversation.
Its own episode,
Yeah, but at the very least, I think this show can prompt the viewer to reconsider that again.
Yeah.
Like they're eating. When you eat meat, you're eating animals. They're just like these ones on this show.
Yeah.
That are running around. Not just like it in the case of factory farming, maybe, but like it's a living thing that is being killed for you to eat it.
Yeah.
And so that seems like it should demand some kind of, at least an ethic.
Yes.
Approaching it. Like it should be done
thoughtfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way you go on it. Like
it makes me feel really bad anytime I've ever wasted meat.
Oh yeah.
If something's died and I haven't ended up eating it, it's been killed.
Well, I know one guy on the season I'm watching, I think he was a little bit late to check his like ghillie net for fish, and found one caught in there that had like died while it was stuck in there and then began to rot. And so he's like, geez, man, like I killed that. He was pretty upset about it.
Yeah.
Like I killed that fish and I couldn't even have like honored it by eating the meat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just really fascinating.
That's something. I am not that thoughtful with my eating.
And even like in that future episode that we do, how does that work in the ethic that somehow you using it and like
justifies
having a mental attitude of honor toward it? Does that does that actually make a difference?
Yeah. Does it just make me feel better?
Or does that just have a good consequence from a bad thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely worth thinking about, and a cool thing that the show brings up. Oh, and maybe this as a closing little thought is how unremorseful or uncaring nature is toward you.
Oh man.
So at the same time as like we have the benefit of having consciousness and having a mind that can like develop an ethic for if I am going to eat this animal, how ought it be done? Or should I do it at all?
Yeah.
Like everything else that's not you isn't doing that at all and gives 0 Fs.
It's just doing its thing. Yeah.
Its attitude toward you. So like
it's merciless.
In some of these seasons, like here's a mountain lion and he is walking around your tent and would like to eat you.
Yeah.
If it had its druthers.
So deal with it.
And wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
There's no remorse or guilt, or and just seeing what's cool about the show is the juxtaposition of the beauty of the landscape. Mm-hmm. Like it is truly gorgeous. It's like stunning. This one place up in Vancouver Island in Canada, like those tall pine trees and the glistening water.
It's gorgeous.
Awesome. And the elevation changes, but at the same time, it is fighting against you in a way.
Yeah, it's constantly opposed to you. And you're right that it's cold and
indifferent.
Mathematical. It's just the weather is blowing in, doesn't care how good your shelter is. There's a storm here now.
A tree could break and fall on your shelter. Some guy quit because he was scared of a tree falling on him.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. I didn't foresee that.
That could happen. And there's no, I don't know. We're so used to in scripted shows and stuff expecting this sort of arc, challenge, success.
Yeah.
But sometimes out there it's just like challenge, failure, heartbreak, go home. That's the story. Mm-hmm. It's just you really struggled out there and it did not go well for you.
Yeah.
That's rough.
It makes you remember that like you aren't necessarily owed anything.
Yeah.
You aren't necessarily the main character.
You're not the protagonist
of the story. Yeah.
Nature is the main character.
Right.
You're a sideshow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will take its pound of flesh one way or the other.
One of the guys says, I think, my mistake coming out here was not thinking that I needed to adapt to nature. Like, I'm thinking that I can enforce my way on it. But, like, I need to learn what nature is up to here and get with the program. Because they start to get in a rhythm of the tides come in here and the tides come out there and, start to get into this routine.
And you and I deal with it in a small way, like in the modern world. And like, as I'm learning as a relatively new homeowner, I am actually still in a battle with nature. Like, it would like to creep into my house in some way. Like we have these shelters, and then the nature in the form of water would like to make its way in.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Critters and it is slowly trying to, not trying. I'm anthropomorphizing it a little bit, but trying to take its claim back over what I've tried to establish.
Right, and what the walls of this shelter, this house, allow me to do is make mental walls as well, where nature becomes a problem I don't need to deal with right now, until something goes wrong and there's water in the basement, and suddenly I'm reminded, nature is doing its thing, and I'm imposing on it a bit.
Yeah.
Which I think is why there's such a benefit to. I can imagine the psychological benefit that comes with having a shelter, even if it's small, even if it's not that comfortable. You're not outside anymore, And it's
so easy to not think about, and this isn't at all part of the Alone show, really, but just to even expand on that further, we have like begun to master very local environments, like my plot of land or like a county, and we figured out how to handle that, but like just whole climates of the world, we still don't have a total handle on what an ocean can do when it rears up its ugly head to swamp you, or even like we have basically no recourse for extra planet nature that might want to have take its
you mean foreign
vengeance
bodies
on you. Asteroid. I don't think we're ready for that at all.
You don't think they've got a plan in place, like they shoot it with lasers or something? Nukes.
I don't know about the lasers
up to it. Probably not lasers.
They'll try. Something
they would
will
send nukes.
Something will be attempted.
They've thought about it.
Like the movie Armageddon.
Yeah.
Someone had thought of it because it's a movie.
Yeah, right. But if it's a big enough asteroid, it could still be, we're just screwed tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah. This is it.
Yeah. So, still a lot of nature to be
explored and
reclaimed,
understood.
Yeah.
Subdued.
Very good,
man.
Well, if you have an idea for another like cultural artifact that we could kind of pick apart and pull out,
do some Black Mirror ones sometime.
Yeah, I mean those are
fun. They're gimmies.
Yeah. Really tee us up for those.
Yeah.
Black Mirror is a great one. Yeah, if you have any other ideas for some shows or books or just cultural pieces that we can talk about, send them into the show. You can write in at opentotruthpodcast@gmail.com. Also, mailbag@opentotruth.com.
Oh.
New little email there.
Put your mail in the bag.
And we do a weekly blog. Be sure to go to the website or just down below if you're on YouTube. There's a little link. Put in your email. We'll only send one a week. That's probably one of the best ways to support us. If you're enjoying the content, share the blog, share these episodes on social, or just forget social. Tell
a friend that you think would like this sort of thing.
Yeah, talk about it in person with a friend. Yeah, I've had it with social media right now.
Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to join the conversation and stay curious.
See ya.